Looking at the table, you probably weren't happy either, were you?
Well, it's number one. We're happy that we won. There's no doubt about that, because that's a lot better outcome than in the first part of the season. It was a tale of two halves for us. Thought we played and did some things that we've been talking about, and we rose to the occasion early. One of the biggest things we talked about early on was handling the situation, being on the road. Haven't played there before. It's always a tough place to play. They have a great crowd and things like that, and we did not want that to get in our way of our focus and our concentration doing what we need to do. And the players, I thought, handled that really well. And again, in the first half, we did a good job at jumping on them. We executed well, and we made the plays that we needed to. We were getting off the field on third down. We had a couple things that showed up. A couple crossing routes that hurt us early. There was a screen early that hurt us, and other than that, it was solid. In the second half, the other guys showed up, a little bit. But at this point in time, there's no good explanation. There's definitely no excuses or anything like that, and it's just a matter of us getting back and getting ready to go to work again.
How pleased were you after the defense gave up the tying touchdown, that final drive, Utah in regulation, for them to bounce back and hold the team, hold Utah just a field goal in OT? How big was that?
Well, no matter what we did from a standpoint of play calling, no matter what we did as far as execution, on the defensive side of the ball throughout that second half, when we huddled up and we won the toss, which was huge in those overtime situations. We reiterated the fact that, as we've always talked about overtime situation, it is huge to hold the other team to a field goal. They start on the 25. It's basically a chip shot for most of these guys that are kicking nowadays in college football, and it was huge to be able to execute. And then Ray came up with a huge play. He was one-on-one on the outside and had good tight coverage, and the front had a good push up front, forced a bad throw, and giving that field goal up at that point in time was a good thing. And throughout, no matter how we played, it wasn't a lack of effort. Guys were definitely giving effort. There's no doubt about that. So that was pleasing.
Do you guys feel like you've turned a corner from a few weeks ago, night and day, in terms of confidence? It seems like the turnovers are there. The defense is starting to get a little rhythm, even though they're giving up the points. Do you feel like they've turned a corner?
Yeah, well, if 180 is a turn a corner, we're 90%, because it was about 50% of the game. But we're still working as a group. We're working through a lot of things, and we're a ways away from that first game of the season. There's no doubt about that. But it's still a work in progress, and players know that, coaches know that, and we're building to that. We can't take a step backward. We got to keep going forward and hold up our end of the deal, because the way the offense is playing right now, God bless them, we need to do our share.
How about the production from Steven Nelson and Sean Martin past few games?
Well, specifically this game here, when you get turnovers, that's huge. And then to have a turnover and score like Sean did, that's good to see. Again, we need to keep going with that. That needs to happen on a regular basis.
Coach, what kind of been your thoughts of Darrell Johnson, and how has his emergence kind of been significant for that linebacker core?
Well, it was one thing to step into his normal position and take up a spot for DJ, but at the same time, what happened with him, this Saturday, he had to go into a new position. He played our middle linebacker in both our nickel and dime packages, and had to make the calls. So it's kind of a double whammy there for him. And through our walkthroughs and that, it was painstaking at time, but he put the burden on his shoulder. When we were doing walkthroughs, you could see kind of anguish in his face at time, because he wanted to do it right. He didn't want to let his teammates down, and they were great about it. They helped him out, with some of the calls and some things like that. But when it came time to the game, from that standpoint, as far as him getting people lined up and getting the front set and the correct calls, he did a fantastic job. So really pleased with his effort there.
Obviously, I know last year he kind of had some consistency issues. Just how big of a difference are you seeing in him from a year ago to today?
Well, it's the development that Coach Riley talks about in our team and our young players, and it's physically he's changed. Last year he got a little got a little pudgy there a little bit, but that's also a lack of constant activity and the reps that he had to take. But he took it personally in the offseason, gained strength, got his weight down, was running better. He's the guy that we saw on tape, coming out of high school, and he's got plenty of room to improve, just like all of us do. And right now, he's been one of our most consistent players, without a doubt, throughout this season, every game.
Coach, in the wake of Michael Doctor's injury, who has stepped up the most on this defense in this last game, do you think?
Well, I think everybody, collectively has had to, but I think just that conversation as far as Darrell is concerned, he's had to bear a lot of the responsibility. But it was the same thing when DJ went down in camp. We had the conversation as a defensive group in our meetings that, hey, one of our guys went down, and it's going to be somebody's turn to step in his place. But at the same time, I mean, DJ made a lot of plays for us, and everybody collectively has to do that. And then the same thing with Michael going down. Not only is he a playmaker, but at the same time, he controls the middle in a very important, part of our defense, our nickel and our dime packages, and not only just playing, but as a signal caller. And as I was saying earlier, alluded to, when we did our walkthroughs throughout the week, and then even at the hotel, we had 2 walkthroughs at the hotel. He did a tremendous job, along with our other players supporting him in getting things lined up, so that he didn't feel like, hey, man, this is all on me. So kudos to the whole group in doing that.
And can you, it's obviously still early in the week in terms of game prep, but can you give us a quick breakdown of San Diego State, what they do on offense?
Yeah, well, the number one thing is, Rocky Long. You could see his attitude and his temperament in the team. They're a very physical team. There's no shortcuts. They come after you. Brian Sipe is still on at staff. He was their quarterback coach last year, even though they changed coordinators to Bob Toledo, who's been around a long time. Horton is also on that staff, who's been a head coach. He's been an offensive coordinator. So you still see a lot of their same pass game that they had. A lot of it comes off of play action. A lot of screens in the game. It's something that we have to work on desperately. We didn't do a good job last week against the screen, because that's truly a team play. It's an effort play. You got to get guys from the second level being able to redirect back down the line of scrimmage to the backs on the screens, or if they're mid screens, which they run to their wide outs, you got to be able to rally to that. And then the defensive line's got to recognize when it's too easy to pass rush to be able to turn around and double back to the direction of the throw. But you definitely see Rocky Long's attitude and temperament in there. Just after 2 games, a little bit of it skewed, because in both games they've had to play catch up a little bit. But the one thing I was impressed with, when they went to Ohio State to play, same situation, that a lot of people have been in. You're behind, but there was no quit in them. Right at the end of the first half, they scored. They found a little something that they could go to. They had a change at quarterback early. They came out in the second half. And, Ohio State still had quite a few of their first team guys. They had some sprinkling in of some second team guys. It wasn't until late in that game in the fourth quarter where they started putting in guys that don't normally play. But San Diego State hung in there. They found something that worked. They were really smart about it. They just didn't go crazy and try to throw the ball all over the place. They stayed with their game plan. They went to the passing game when they needed to and had passes that were effective with what the defense was doing.
Last, before you mentioned earlier, do you feel, is it getting to you? Do you feel like you guys are depending on the offense a little too much to win these games? If you guys, you guys talking about maybe wanting to pick up your end of the bargain a little bit more?
Well, the big thing is, on defense, it's kind of an interesting deal that you evolve with. When Sean Martin picks the ball off and scores, how many times does the defense score? And that's a great thing, But defensively, you go in and you want to shut people out all the time. You don't want to give up a yard in the run game. You don't want to give up let alone a deep pass. You don't want to give up a 10, 12-yard pass. You want to minimize the damage and get off the field as quickly as possible. The more times that the offense has the ball, the more opportunities that they could score. And that's how we felt in the first half, by getting off the field in a timely fashion, doing what our job was that it calls for you to do. We were doing that. In the second half, we weren't doing that, and they started converting third downs and got momentum going, and then we just couldn't find that right line to be on. And then offensively, they've been doing a tremendous job. I tell you what, I thought our offensive line just did a tremendous job. They have some injuries and some issues over there too, and they did a tremendous job giving Sean time. And the other thing is, Sean, and knock on wood, let's keep that going. Mulaney showed up big in that game, so they've got guys emerging over there. But yeah, absolutely, we want to do our part. I mean, that's why they call it a team, and we have to do a better job as time goes on if we're going to win more football games this season.